I'm Chance, this is Line Racing, and this weekend we're going to build just a touch of a ignition system for old T-Bone. Yep, I usually make these myself, but I just picked this one up because it was cheap. 2 relays and 6 fuses. Now, the ignition system that's in this vehicle is not fused at all, which will get you out of a pinch, but if something ever goes to ground, it's probably going to start a fire. So it's best if you have fuses. So I picked up this little fuse box, like I said. Yeah, I think it was like 15 bucks. It's going to be perfect for what we're trying to do. So before we get too into it, let's talk about our cheap little fuse box here. Now, we're going to do this a little bit differently than the folks over in China originally intended. So the way that they have set this up, you can tell that they've got all the fuses up top tied together. So they've got these 2 big red wires and they're tied together. So you put these on 12 volts and then the whole top side here of your fuses all have 12 volts on the top. Now, that's not exactly how I want to do it. I want to fire a relay, which then puts 12 volts on at least 4 of these fuses right here, and that will give me 4 fused ignition wires. See what I'm saying? So we're going to do this by, we're going to send both of our yellow wires, which is on the other side of the contact for the relays. It doesn't matter, you can power either side of it, it doesn't matter, as long as you switch it on and off with these 2 red wires, so be it. Bob's your uncle. So what we're going to do now is we're going to mount this turd to the truck. So first things first, we're just going to go ahead and lop this off, because we're not going to be using that big, that was to tie the 2 reds together. We're not going to use it. And probably what we'll do here is we'll cut a little window in this stuff right here, so we can sneak our ground out, get a little bit more relay state. Like I said, y'all, I usually like building these myself just because I can get exactly what I want, but for this it's easy enough just to buy some cheapy little fuse box and do it. Well, we can put it right here, extend this wire a little bit and get it over to the, I mean, really and truthfully, we could attach it to something on this, but there's nothing to attach it to. So let's go ahead and mount this rig. With the finest self-tappers. All right, so now we just need to extend our ground by about 9 foot, and then we can start running our relays. Since I'm lazy and don't feel like going and grabbing my meter, I'm gonna check and see if this over here is a decent enough ground, and it is. It sparks, so that means that there's continuity between the ground and that screw over there. So that's gonna be our ground screw. Cut that mess off. Yes, I'm using white because I don't have anything, I didn't have any more black, so we're just going to use white. Another thing is I don't like using butt connectors. Well, insulated butt connectors, they look ugly, so I get me, heck, I bought this I don't know how long ago, years ago. It's just a, how many feet is this? 30 meters of heat shrink in a roll, and I have had this for years, and I just use me non-insulated butt connectors, crimp them on, and then put some heat shrink over top of them. It looks 10 times better. If I had black wire to go with the black wire, it'd look a lot better, but I don't. So we're just gonna make it work. We put our non-insulated butt connector on here. Pinch. That's not going anywhere. Run us off some of our heat shrink. Slide it down over top. Pinch again. Now we just slide that up, we'll shrink it down with some heat, and we'll be ready to put that on our ground. Use our little propane torch, makes quick work of it. There we go. Done and done. Fuse box has now been grounded. All we need is a couple zip ties to clean that up. Now we need to run our power wires. We're backtracking a little bit. So I was thinking about it, and I might want at least 2 fuses that are just power all the time. And that's because if I want to prime the engine, if it sits for a while, I don't want to have to turn the ignition on and get the spark plugs going too. So I'm going to cut this jumper right here. I know y'all can't really see it, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate these 2 fuses from the rest. So I've gone a little bit ahead of you just for my sanity and trying to get things done. I've run 2 10-gauge feeders, whatever you want to call them. They're the same potential as of right now, but one of them is going to feed our 12-volt constant side, and one is going to feed our 12-volt switch side, which you can also call ignition. So these are going to somehow rope around kind of cleanly and make their way back over here. I'm just kind of looking at that, trying to figure out the best way to do it. So while we're here, we're going to go ahead and use some of Tito's old actual wiring. This is the plug for the HEI distributor. So we're going to go ahead and reuse it and do away with the little 16 gauge that I had run and run everything with 12 gauge. Heat shrink this, and we'll get it pulled over to the fuse box, and then we'll go ahead and power the choke, and then we'll be done in the engine bay, and then we can clean all this mess up. And y'all make sure you use all yellow wire so you have no idea what anything is. So we've got a blue wire coming from in the cab. That's going to fire both relays. And then we've got our distributor. This is 12 volts going to our distributor. This is 12 volts going to our choke. This is the primary side, primary 12 volts. It's going to be switched for our ignition. And this is just 12 volt constant that's going to be going. This is going to be running inside to the cab for our starter, and going to give us our constant 12 volts inside the cab. So pretty simple little wiring job here. It's not too terribly difficult. We're just trying to get the ignition. For some reason, the lights on the truck work. A bunch of other things already working. I don't know why, and I'm not figuring it out, but I'm going to fuse the ignition side of it. Okay, put a couple wraps of this aluminum tape on it. This is just to clean it up a little bit so it doesn't look like too much of a spaghetti over here.
What's cooking? Good looking.
Nothing. So everything is cleaned up, tails are cut off, the zip ties. So now we should be able to put our ground on, and we shouldn't have any sparks. Now we should be able to hit the start button and the truck roll over on the starter without interfering with anything. But for some reason the wipers still work. That's aggravating. Alright, so should be able to hit the starter. There goes the oil pressure. So we can prime it now, and if we hit this button, should hear some relays click. So now I have to figure out why there's 12 volts on this truck all the time, even with everything out of it. I really don't understand that. I could swap it to where whenever you turn this on, like I was originally planning to do but didn't do. I don't know, we'll see. Here's the thing, if I leave it like it's sitting right now, some of these gauges are on, so I mean, here in just a little while there'll be some parasitic loss and this battery will be pulled down to nothing. So Probably just gonna get a kill switch. But for now, you can come over here. Start it just like normal. And if you want to prime it, you can prime it. So yeah, while I was getting materials to do this ignition system, I had the wife pick up some seafoam. We're just gonna give old T-Bow a tune-up. Clean up all the combustion chambers. Maybe it'll help some. I'm sorry, it has been a short video. It has been super windy out here today. But that is gonna do it for this weekend's video. Ignition system looks pretty good in there. Runs great. Everything's fused now, which makes me feel a million times better. So I'm gonna let it chew on that seafoam and maybe clean up the combustion chambers. But I'm gonna give y'all a sneak peek of what's going on next weekend. That's a rocker. We're going to be replacing the rockers on T-Bow. I've got the inner and outer rocker for the driver's side, and we'll get the inner and outer rocker for the passenger side. Just piddling, you know, this stuff is cheap. It's like $100 and something other bucks off of Summit to get an inner and outer rocker and the kick panels right here. I'm gonna get a floor pan too. It just hasn't showed up. So y'all tune in for next week. I'm gonna have more time, and we're gonna be doing some cutting, some welding, some grinding, and some eyeballing next weekend. See you next weekend.